In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make three-dimensional objects. It's important to know your two-dimensional shapes before you get started making three-dimensionals. So first we'll go over a few two-dimensional shapes. We have the square, the rectangle, the triangle, and a circle. Now we're going to go over some of the three-dimensional objects. When you look at this, what do you see? It's made up of many squares. And because there's nothing but squares on this, we call it a cube. Next, when we look at this one, what do we see? We see many rectangles and just two squares. Now since there's more rectangles than squares, this is called a rectangular prism. Now looking at this object, what is the shape that you see? That's right, a triangle. So that means that we'll call this one a triangular prism. Next, this one can be kind of tricky. At the bottom, we have a square, but at the top, it comes to a point which we call a square pyramid. Now we're going to go over some of the parts of a three-dimensional object. In the corners, where all of the sides come together, is called the vertices. We also have an edge. These are where the two sides connect together, such as if you were saying somebody would walk off an edge. Next is the base. These are the flat surfaces. Now we're going to make our own three-dimensional objects. We will need marshmallows and toothpicks. We'll start with making a cube. We'll need first to make a square. Connect the two marshmallows to the end of the toothpick and continue until we have a square. Okay, now we have our first square. Now let's make another square that we'll put on top of this one when we're finished. We're going to do the same procedure of connecting all the marshmallows and toothpicks until we have a square. Now we have another square. We're going to connect these two squares by putting the second square on top of the first one to make it three-dimensional. So let's stick toothpicks around the outer corners of the marshmallows on the first square. Okay? Now let's get the second square and set it on top of the toothpicks of the first square. Okay, now we have a three-dimensional object where our marshmallows are our vertices, the toothpicks are the edge, and the bases are just left blank. Now we're going to make a rectangular prism. We're going to break the toothpicks in half because we need to make the two smaller edges squares. So first we'll make small squares with the toothpicks and marshmallows. Alright, here's our first small square. Now let's make one more. Again, connecting the marshmallows to the tips of the toothpicks until we have a small square. Now we know in a rectangular prism that the rectangle is going to be the length is going to be longer than the width. So now we'll use 4 regular sized toothpick. As the same as we did in the cube, we'll stick them in the corners of the first square. Now we will connect the second square to the top of the pyramid, to the top of the prism. Now we have a rectangular prism where there's two squares on each end and the rectangular as the base. Now we're going to make the triangular prism. The same as we did with the cube and the rectangle, we're going to first build a triangle and a second triangle and connect them together. So let's grab our marshmallows that we're using as our vertices and connect the toothpicks to make a triangle. Alright, here's triangle 1. Now we need to make triangle 2. We have our two triangles, and now we need to connect them together at the middle to make them three-dimensional. So the same as the other two, let's connect the toothpicks to the outer edges of the marshmallows. And then set the second triangle on top of it. Now we have a three-dimensional triangle. Now we're going to make the square pyramid. We're first going to begin by making its base, which is a square. And then we'll connect them all at the top, at the vertices, and make a pyramid. So let's get 4 marshmallows and make a square. Alright, here's our square. Now this is a little bit different. We're going to connect them all in the center. So let's just stick the toothpicks in the outer edge. And get 1 marshmallow for the point. And bring all of them together. Now we have our square pyramid, because we have a square at the bottom and they all join at the top. And the different terms that go with them. On this one again, we see nothing but squares. So that makes this one a cube. And at the points where we had marshmallows, those are called vertices. And where we have the toothpicks on the outer sides is called the edge. And the flat part is the base.